This video is brought to you by Brilliant. Today, Georgians protest a controversial bill. The US attempts to convince Arab nations to partake in a multinational peacekeeping effort in Gaza, and Putin and Xi discuss solving the quote, Ukraine crisis. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Wednesday the 15th of May, 2024. For the last couple of weeks, Georgians have been protesting a controversial bill known as the Foreign Agents Law, which would require NGOs to disclose their funding sources and could hinder the country's accession to the EU. Critics of the new law fear that the government will use it to crack down on the media, the opposition, and Georgian civil society. Now, this exact same law was proposed about a year ago by the ruling Georgian Dream Party, triggering similarly massive protests, which eventually ended with the bill being withdrawn. However, despite promising back then that its withdrawal was unconditional, in early April the Georgian government reintroduced the bill, sparking another round of protests. This time, however, the government hasn't backed down, and the law passed its final reading yesterday, as protesters attempted to storm the parliament. It resulted in a fight breaking out when Georgian Dream MP Dmitry Samkaradze was seen charging towards Livan Kabishvili, the chairman of the main opposition party, after Kabishvili accused him of organising mobs to beat up opposition supporters. A political thug culture has gripped the Georgian capital. Gia Japaridze, a 50-year-old lecturer and former diplomat who has been openly vocal of his opposition to the law, was ambushed near his home last week by several people wielding sticks and a baseball bat. Nino Zautashvili, the founder of an investigative outlet branded as a foreign agent, was also verbally assaulted. Dozens of other opposition supporters and activists have faced similar threats. The bill has now been sent to President Salom Zorubishvili, who has 14 days to either veto or approve it. Zorubishvili has announced that she will veto the bill, but the ruling Georgian Dream have a sufficient majority to override a presidential veto. The bill has received massive international backlash from pro-European states and organisations. The EU's Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell and the Neighbourhood Commissioner Oliver Valieri urged the Georgian authorities to withdraw the bill. The Council of Europe Secretary-General also stated that the Council is very disappointed that the concerns of Georgia's international partners have been ignored. Just as in Georgia's Rose Revolution in 2003, vast crowds waving EU flags have taken to the streets to demand democratic change and have been met with police brutality. Yesterday, a number of demonstrators were treated by medics after tear gas was used by police, while squads of police dragged individuals away and detained another 13. All of this raises the question, could Georgia be on the cusp of a colour revolution? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. There's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing tomorrow. Plus, if you want to support the channel like Dmytro Dushenkov, then consider joining the new TLDR membership program for just $1.99. The US is trying to convince Arab nations to participate in a multinational peacekeeping effort in Gaza once the war ends, according to Western and Arab officials. Egypt, the UAE and Morocco are considering the initiative, but say that they would want the US to recognise a Palestinian state first. Other Arab states, including Saudi Arabia, have rejected the idea, fearing they would be seen to be complicit with Israel. President Joe Biden has also said that he's not willing to deploy American troops into Gaza, which sources say would make it more difficult to rally others behind the idea. As a result, the US is trying to work out how it can build momentum for a stability force without having boots on the ground. It also remains unclear what Israel would agree to, and current President Netanyahu's unknown intentions for the remainder of the conflict have also frustrated the US and other allies. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that the US had been working for many weeks on developing credible plans for security, for governance, for rebuilding, and that many partners in the region are willing to play a constructive role. Meanwhile, another situation is playing out on the other side of Europe, where Putin and Xi are in China discussing, quote, solving the Ukrainian crisis. Speaking to China's Xinhua news agency, Putin said that Beijing understands the root causes of the war and its global geopolitical meaning. He also said that Russia is seeking a comprehensive, sustainable and just settlement of this conflict through peaceful means, and that Russia is open to a dialogue on Ukraine that takes into account the interests of all countries involved in the conflict, including ours. In response, Ukraine's presidential advisor dismissed Putin's comments on possible negotiations as hypocritical. China is one of a few countries that have maintained close ties with Russia since the war began. Last year, Beijing published a 12-point statement outlining general principles for ending the war, which included abandoning the Cold War mentality and resuming peace talks. China has also helped Russia out economically since it was swiftly cut off by the West, and the two countries are now trading at record levels. However, with China wary of coming under further scrutiny by the West for military cooperation, it stopped short of providing weapons and ammunition to Russia. Moving to the UK now, where Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg has suggested that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak should work more closely with the Reform Party in order to avoid losing the upcoming general election. Specifically, Rees-Mogg has claimed that Sunak should offer candidate selection to senior members of the Reform Party. If Sunak does take him up on this, it would mean the likes of Nigel Farage, Richard Tice and Ben Habib all standing as Tory candidates. In fact, Rees-Mogg went even further, suggesting that the Prime Minister should make Farage a government minister, and that he should make the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson Foreign Secretary. While uncommon, such moves would, according to Rees-Mogg, help the Tories snatch victory from the jaws of defeat at the election. As things stand, they're still significantly behind in the polls, and a Labour landslide looks likely. Things are only made worse for the Tories by the relative success of Reform in the polls, with their national polling hovering at around 12%. Rees-Mogg claims that when the Tories and Reform's polling's put together, it puts them at 37% and Labour at 41%, a much tighter gap and something that could potentially prevent a landslide. As things stand though, it looks highly unlikely that Sunak will listen to Rees-Mogg's advice. In the final uplifting story today, we discuss the findings of Australian doctor Richard Scolyer. Scolyer is a renowned pathologist who's pioneered research on melanoma. It's because of this that he, alongside his colleague and friend Georgina Long, were named Australian of the Year this year. Scolyer, though, has also been diagnosed with a melanoma of his own, specifically a subtype of glioblastoma, which is so aggressive that most patients survive less than a year. However, thanks to an experimental personalised so-called cancer vaccine, which was based on Scolyer's own research, his latest MRI scan shows that there's been no recurrence of his tumour. Speaking about this, Scolyer has said that it certainly doesn't mean that my brain cancer is cured, but it's just nice to know that it hasn't come back yet. So I've still got some more time to enjoy my life with my wife Katie and my 3 wonderful kids. Ultimately, underpinning this topic is a lot of data, whether that's economics, trade patterns, polling, or demographics. A lot of the time in politics, you just have to understand the data. So if you want to get a better grasp on these things, I'd recommend Brilliant. They've just introduced a whole bunch of new data courses, which are perfect for learners of any level, taking you through everything from Bayes' theorem to multiple linear regression. It even uses real datasets from the likes of Starbucks, X, and Spotify to bring things to life. I'm not even a super mathematical person, and I still found it easy and enjoyable to work through. That's because of how Brilliant is designed, built around learning by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. The thing is that, like I said, you can learn all of these things quickly and easily, because Brilliant's courses are split into easy-to-digest chunks. Brilliant helps you build real knowledge in minutes a day, with fun lessons you can do whenever you have time, replacing mindless scrolling on the train or waiting for coffee with something actually stimulating and rewarding. So get learning across all kinds of STEM subjects for free for a full 30 days by clicking the link in the description. That way you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription, and they'll know that you came from us, which really helps us out.